This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
There we go. Call the order this meeting of the Easthampton Planning Board for Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023. We are recording the meeting, and we have one member, Harry, who is remotely. Hello, Harry. So first item on the agenda is public speak. Is there anyone to speak to anything that is not on the agenda tonight? We'll go through agenda items, but anybody to speak about anything not on the agenda? Seeing nothing, we'll move right along. Oh.
I'm not sure anyone's there.
Oh.
Anyone on that?
Anyone remote? You can put your name in the chat.
Good catch, James. All right, next item is planning board minutes. Although Eli, this says November 15th and the minutes are December 20th.
So it says on the agenda.
Yeah. Is that?
That's not the right minutes, yeah.
Let's wait.
Okay.
We'll pass on that, although we all wanted to praise Eli on his wonderful minutes. So
That's really
Thank you.
all right, so next item is A&R for 12 Industrial Parkway, 10 Industrial Parkway, receiving land from 8 Industrial Parkway. Is there someone to speak to that?
Yes.
Can you come right up to the podium, sir? Name and address.
Yeah.
And we have plans, but if you can just give us a general overview of what the idea is.
Yeah, my name is David, and my property in Easthampton is 10 and 12 Industrial Parkway. I'm the owner of Peaks Construction, and we also have a real estate company called D&R Management. At 10 Industrial Parkway, where our office is, our lot line is somewhat oddly shaped. It was subdivided that way by Theodore Town years ago, and we are trying to straighten the lot line between our property and Chilson's Awning, our next door neighbor. We have kind of a weird jog that restricts us from expanding our building. And so we offer to purchase this slice of property that will make our property line square to the street. We don't have any current plans right now for anything, but this was to clear this up so we can expand on our building.
You purchased from 8?
Yes, we purchased from 8.
Any comments, questions from the planning board? Planning department, any comments? Anything unusual? No.
I motion to endorse the A&R for 12, 10, and 8 Industrial Parkway.
Second. All right, voting to endorse the A&R. All those in favor? Aye. Jerry?
Harry, you're muted. No. Am I not here?
Harry, can you hear me?
Oh, he is muted.
Now you're muted.
Yeah.
There you go. Try again.
Yes, I can hear you.
Can't hear you, Harry.
Maybe thumbs up or thumbs down.
Sorry, Harry, can you go again?
I got my mic turned on. I can't hear anybody.
It was our bad.
Can I get an aye on that vote? Or an A, or an abstain?
He doesn't hear us.
Harry, can you hear us?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, can you vote on the motion to endorse?
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right.
Could we hear that endorsement again, please? You know,
We don't want to push the envelope.
just sort of.
All right, moving right along. So I will endorse those and we will get them to
You can probably pick them up tomorrow.
tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Best of luck. All right, moving right along, we have a public hearing on Select Energy Development LLC seeking a special permit for a large solar energy facility. Is there someone here for that project?
Good evening. Here, Jose Picharo online, project manager with Green Seal Environmental, representing the applicant.
Great. Can you give me your name again, please?
Jose Picharo, manager with Green Seal Environmental.
All right, can you give us a little overview of what the project is that you're proposing?
Yes, I would like to share the screen, if I can.
Yeah, Jose, you should have permission to share the screen if you just go ahead.
You have the television on? Can we use that or no?
Yeah, the camera wasn't working. So we have an issue with it.
Oh.
Hey, are you guys able to see that?
Yes, we can do that. Yeah.
Okay, so basically what we're looking to do is within the wastewater treatment plant, there is some older former sludge lagoons at the southeast portions of the property, and what we're looking to do is to install over Vallet's solar array capable of producing 250 kilowatts of power, AC. And the project will be enclosed in a 7-foot high fence, and it will have a small area for emergency vehicle turnaround inside the fenced area. It's all right over the top. No excavation will be required. Just essentially how it is, right over the top. The underground utilities will only be outside of the former sludge lagoons, and within that area, it will be all above ground with trays. So it will go from the solar array to a utility pad outside of the former sludge, and from there underground to the interconnection point near the operations building, as you can see right over here. It's pretty much, it's just that simple of a project. Like I said, no excavation. All footings will be ballast over the top, prefabricated concrete, about 9.5 feet by 3.5 feet wide, each one of them. And it will have 9 rolls within the area. It's all under the 1 acre of disturbance, so it will not require any stormwater permit. And at this point, we have been in front of conservation for the project, and due to the low impact of the project, we received a negative determination. We understand that after planning board, we'll have to go to the building department for regular building permit and zoning enforcement. In addition to that, a state permit is believed not to be required. However, we're still communicating with Mass DP to see what kind of documentation they can provide to us for pre-existing permits. Like I said, this sludge lagoon was discontinued at the beginning of the 80s, so there is not a whole lot of there's not a lot of data available for filing. It's not on the website for active landfills or the day was closed or anything like that. And that's pretty much the overall. At this point, I can answer any questions that you might have and start a discussion if appropriate.
Quick question. You said that there's a utility pack. Is that already built?
No, all the utilities will be above ground. It's going to go by trays above ground from the solar canopy to a proposed utility pad, and from there it will go underground to the existing transformer pad that is at the operations building.
Just built. Okay, thank you.
James.
Thank you. So I'm doing it so everyone knows. Can you tell me about the material of the fence and the height of the fence?
Yeah, so it's a 7-foot high chain link fence. Also installed on ballast. So again, no excavation on the area. No driving any type of pilings or anything like that. So it will look something similar to what you have on the scene on the screen. And it will have a 7-foot gap, obviously, for that's a request conservation asked us. So any species can go through it.
Thank you. And with regard to the visualization of the panels themselves, is that something you can highlight for us?
Yes, absolutely. So the existing site, it's fully screened. because obviously the accessory use that we intend to use is less restrictive than what it is treatment plant. So the property itself it's about 17 acres in size. Let me verify that. Yeah, so it's approximately 17 acres of land. And the proposed area is very isolated. It's all vegetated around the property line, so it's already screened.
I'm looking to see if you have any images you can show of the panels.
Oh, the panels, yes, absolutely. So this will look something closer to that.
It's not coming up.
Jose, you still have your other screen up.
It's not coming out. Okay, let me see.
There it is.
So yeah, so that's one of the visual, but the closer one will be something like that, with a square ballast right over the top.
A couple of
Yeah, no, nope, please.
have you included a plan for decommissioning?
The array is intended to be owned by the city, so we didn't include some language of what the amounts will be. Like the estimated decommissioning bond will be around $110,000. So there is some language on the documents that we filed because the cost of the project is estimated to be $1,100,000 approximately. But we believe that it's got to be the responsibility of the owner at this point.
Which creates sort of an interesting situation that we need to think about if it actually benefits the city to require a decommissioning bond when the whole point of it is for the city to have that available.
Does this only service the wastewater treatment plant, or is it going to the grid? Does this just service the wastewater treatment plant, or does it go into the actual electric grid?
We have Ken Lacourse from Select Energy that might be able to answer that question accurately.
Yeah, so this is actually, hi, this is Ken Lacourse from Select Energy. So we're actually working with the town of Easthampton right now on whether or not we're doing grid or if it's going to be a PPA installment on it. So that is yet to be determined.
But because it's city property, right? And the city is going to be the owners of the panels, is that right?
That is correct, yes.
So, it's for something to think about. The reason we have the decommissioning bond is so if company A goes under and the city's looking at a field that was a field and is now a bunch of solar panels, we have money to clean it up.
Right.
In this case, the city's going to be the one that has to pay to decommission it anyway.
Because it's our work.
Because it's our property. So it occurred to me that, getting a bond or a letter of credit or whatever it is not free. So it actually adds to the cost, but I don't think it's just something to think about. I'm not sure we're there yet, but that's kind of unique to the fact that this is a city-owned project that they're talking about.
Yeah, and again, like I had mentioned, Honeywell is actually the person the corporation that actually hired us to do this project. So they're in negotiations with the town of Easthampton on working out that issue.
Okay. Any other questions from planning board members?
Yeah. So just to clarify, so there is no. I see in the notes that there's no vegetation cleared. Is there any clearing at all? Like, are there any trees that need to be cleared, or?
It will be just regular maintenance, landscaping maintenance. It will be probably more on the overgrown vegetation within the footings area. But it is intended to be maintained, with the least amount of disturbance possible.
And so no tree removal, Jose?
As of right now, there is only one tree that I can't remember within the nearest proximity. It's not intended to be cut at this point.
Okay.
Not,
Can you tell us about the maintenance costs? How often will you have vehicles in there? How many times a year?
So Jose, I could actually answer that end of it. This is strictly, it's probably once a year just for routine maintenance on the array, just to make sure that everything is running operationally secure. Very little traffic will be on this site.
Are you going to have to put in any new sort of infrastructure, driveways, buildings, parking lots, anything like that? Or is it all basically served with what's already on site?
Whatever is on site. Go ahead, Jose. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a small, like I explained at the beginning, it's gonna be a small gravel area just for emergency vehicle to turn around within the compound area, but it's coming right off the paved area that is already existing.
Okay. Any other questions?
One last one.
Yeah.
I just noticed that it's being built atop the former sludge lagoon area with a note here that it's closed and capped, obviously. And do you guys take into account what material was used as fill? When it says cap, is that a clay cap? Is it concrete? How do you know how they cap that, or what material is underlaying your proposed design?
Yes, I can answer that. And it's like I said at the beginning, the records for this are very limited. On some reports and documents, it calls for already Kaplan fill. If that is the case, yes, it will be like that. However, all the design calculations that we submitted assume class 5 material, which is basically closer to mud than it could be. So what it does is, if we determine a size for the ballast, if it happens to have the cap, then those calculations will be a smaller size ballast. So we did account for, like, if it does not have it in all the vegetation studies over the top is naturally overgrown.
does that make sense?
It begged another question. I don't know, potentially answered it, but it wasn't clear to me. So does that mean there's further study for your team to do to then characterize the soil, and you're going to adjust your ballast or footing size dependent on that soil type? Is that?
No, because we already assumed the worst possible soils on the calculations, which will be basically organic silt. If that is class 5 material. So what happens is, if it does have the cap with the clay layer, then in the drainage layer and all the impervious barrier, it will require a smaller footing over the top to distribute.
I understand.
So basically, we account for worst case scenario here, and it's a very light structure. As you can see, it's it's all aluminum. I haven't seen a single one, and we do a lot of this, that has any issues with it.
And there's no excavation involved, right? You're just putting the ballast on top.
Absolutely. There's no excavation whatsoever within that area.
James?
We talked about decommissioning a little, and I have to admit, the city-owned part, it's interesting to me. I don't have a full grasp on it, but I think it might be worth mentioning that it should be suggested that the city, as part of the project, put the bond in for themselves, so that what happens is that, yes, the city has to deal with it, but we're not kicking the can down the road for whatever the government is 20 years from now. It was pre-thought and pre-planned so that they don't have to suffer on that. And I'd just like to suggest that to you, something you might suggest to whatever the city you represent or anyone that's doing something about it. That a bond in place early is probably better for our community later.
I would tend to agree, because I like that that's the precedent we set for solar farms, and I'd like to keep that precedent going, of making sure there's a bond for decommissioning to put it back to the field. I mean, I tend to agree to that.
I'm certainly comfortable with that.
I guess I would just add that there are, this is a pretty early stage in the process for the city to determine whether the city will want to install the actual structure. So I think there's 2 steps with the bond. If you are inclined to talk about voting tonight, maybe the permit can be issued that prior to the issuance of a building permit, that a bond be prepared and submitted to the board at a public meeting or something, just because.
I think we've done that in the past.
Right.
I mean, until they break ground, there's nothing for us to decommission.
Right.
I think. And we also, I think, use language that sort of says in a form satisfactory to the planning board.
Yeah. Okay.
And that also, I think, makes sense because the city doesn't yet own that, although they own the property. I mean, I guess things could change at some point, and then we would know who the actual owner was at the time we're doing that too, which might change the way we think about it.
Sure. I think that with that arrangement, I think that would serve the city well, just to protect itself and have the money secured. The only reason I'm really mentioning this is because there is an additional layer of review that would happen at Mass DEP. And I was noted in the memo that that's a step that will happen after this. And if, for example, Mass DEP, so they regulate, changes to a capped landfill. So if they identify something that needs to occur in order to support the solar array, the city still has a decision to make whether they would, allocate those funds to do further work on the capped landfill before installing it. So this is an early step, which, the city could just do this along the next year or so. Or as they go through due diligence, they may decide that this is not feasible or worth those additional funds. So you're in an early stage where there's at least one more approval with Mass DEP that could really dictate whether the city does this project or not.
It sounds like the applicant thinks that DEP doesn't need another review. You might be a little less sure of that. Is that?
We provide correspondence to the applicant that the DEP is expecting a permit.
Okay.
They expect to issue a permit for this project. The question would be what would be involved.
What the level of review is or something.
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense.
So I gotta jump into that. So basically, what that email says is that it might be required. We don't believe it is because it's not solid waste. But however, we will continue communication with them, and they will have to provide what kind of permits do they have that are not available to us that will validate that permitting process.
Jose, do you have any idea what the timeline is to get an answer from DEP?
No, the state, unfortunately, it's not that easy. But we did reach out to them, and we will continue to do so. On any event, I don't believe that DEP has anything to do with what the planning board is. We're okay with you putting, let's say, a condition on it.
I think that's all we would do is likely have a condition. Honestly, it's not like.
Right, which is redundant because the applicant knows that all permitings need to be obtained, just like we went in front of conservation, just like we are in front of you. If it is required, we'll have to get those permits. So there's no question about it.
Planning board, any other questions, comments?
Yes. I have one question. For these structures, what is the wind load this is designed to, so that these aren't kind of toppling over in a strong wind, because they're not secured to the ground, right? They're sitting on ballasts.
Correct. So yeah, the calculations that we submitted with the package calls for 106 miles per hour wind.
Okay.
And again, it's not a very high structure. It's like 9 foot high at the highest point, with only 3 feet separation from the ground.
Yeah. Oh, that's one thing.
Harry, do you have any questions or comments from the online world?
No.
Okay. Anyone from the public? Comments, questions? All right. I think this is one where we want a written decision to go through the findings. Like my impulse is to continue this for a review of the decision and a vote at the next meeting. Does that make sense to members?
I concur, but I don't think it's a situation where I need to say that are much more for the written decision to all over the next meeting.
That's what I think. Jose, does that make sense to you if we continue this to the next meeting just so we can review a written decision and have a final vote?
Yes, absolutely. And I just want to add a little bit on the bond. We can work that out. That we think is reasonable. We do this type of bonding for a lot of projects, so we don't see an issue if we have to, jump in and facilitate something to make it happen.
Excellent.
That's a condition that should be in there.
I agree. Does the 17th of January work for your group, Jose?
Yes, that'll be perfect.
Are we okay with that, planning department?
Yeah, I think that works. And may I just add one note on the decommissioning bond? The one thing I would just like to create a little bit of wiggle room is to better understand the contract. The city, because they mentioned it, but the city is entering into a contract with this company as well. So I just want to make sure that there's not a duplicative measure in the contract that would protect the city, same as the decommissioning
Some sort of
bond.
indemnification or something.
Right. I just don't know. So I would like to ask DPW is involved in this project as well. So I just want to make sure before we would bring information to the next meeting, but the condition can be drafted, as if there is a bond to be provided. That would be prior to a building permit, unless there's something in the contract that already protects the city. We can provide that. And then the other condition was to the Mass DEP.
Right.
And just clarity that those permits are required prior to building permit law.
Or whatever permits are required.
Exactly, right,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, and we haven't voted on anything. We're not bound to anything. So if something changes in the next 2 weeks, we can make it easier or more secure or whatever we need to do. But I think it makes sense to have a written decision to go through and confirm for something like this.
For our motion to continue, do we have anything else in the 17th of January already put in? Should I say 6 o'clock, or is there something at the front?
We can do this at the front. Let's do this at the front. Yeah.
My motion to continue to the 17th of January at 6 o'clock, the solar energy development seeking a special permit. Seconded.
All right, voting to continue to the 17th. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Harry. All right, Jose, Ken, thank you. So we'll hopefully just be back briefly on the 17th to review a decision and have a final vote.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night. All right. Next up on the agenda is the continued public hearing for Tasty Top Development. We do have a request for a continuance from the applicant. Is there somebody from the applicant that can speak to this? Is there someone online maybe?
Yeah, Luke Showalter with Furrow Engineering here to represent Tasty Top Development.
Great, Luke. So I know you guys submitted a letter today requesting a continuance till the next meeting. Can you just give a little overview of what you need the time for?
Yeah, so currently we're still working to address comments from the last planning board meeting. We also received a good amount of comments from the Conservation Commission we're working to address, including some stormwater revisions. Also, our traffic consultant has scheduled an additional day of traffic counts at both intersections on Northampton Street for this week. We intentionally waited until after the holidays to provide an accurate representation of traffic conditions. And in addition to this, the applicant's counsel could not be in attendance tonight. So for these reasons, we are requesting a continuance of the project meeting to the board's next meeting on January 17th.
So Luke, I'll just explain. Usually we're pretty, I don't want to say skeptical, but sometimes there's strategic reasons why. I mean, I think there's probably close to 100 people in the room, and it looks like another 30 people online. So we always want to make sure it's not being done for some nefarious purpose. But I think we also gave you a lot of marching orders at the last meeting, and I do want you guys to be gathering that information. But I do think, I know you're the only representative here, but we want to be careful, going forward that this isn't something that happens regularly and that we're making sure that you ask for enough time to get stuff together. Because I hate to drag people out here who all want to say and share their thoughts on it. And frankly, at this point, we don't really have a full picture of what the current proposal is because you haven't come back with the information yet. So I just want to make sure that's clear to, run that up the flagpole. That I personally think that this one makes sense, but I don't think we want to be doing this regularly because there's a lot of people that want to be involved every step of the way and they have to come out every night when we have a meeting.
Absolutely, we understand that. And as of this morning, we were planning to attend tonight and present it, but it was a decision made based on all the information that we weren't able to get to you yet. So we will be aware of that going forward for sure.
And I understand, and like I said, there was a long list of stuff we were looking for, and I think all these are things that it wasn't a huge window to get all of us, so not even considering the holidays. So I'm sympathetic. Yeah, Chris?
Do you want it? You can start. Well, so basically we're talking about just the one extra day of traffic counts. And I think if you're up there, it really probably makes sense to get a couple of days instead of just the one day, so you can get more data points. So you're not just out there for a particular few hours that may not be either, maybe there's not a lot of traffic that particular time you're out there. So the more data you get, the more we can rely on it.
Yeah.
And especially Luke, I mean, again, I know you're the only person here to listen to this, but I mean, I think there's a real question about, I kept saying peer review last time, but we're entitled to request a new traffic study at their expense if they push forward. And I think that I at least am sort of leaning that way based on the first traffic study. So I think the more credibility you can put into this one, where people feel like they can rely on the data, the less likely it is that we need to do sort of more comprehensive second opinion, third opinion, that kind of thing. So again, Danny?
Yeah, just to expound on that, one other comment on that traffic study is personally, with master's in traffic engineering myself, I believe that study should have been extended to the roundabout or rotary, I guess, it's not a modern day roundabout, but I thought that the extents were cut short. And I think anybody who drives through the town understands that it doesn't just stop at, was it West Street there, just past the bridge, but the impacts are chased all the way through, even to the intersection with at Antonio's Pizza for Union. I believe that it goes there, and then you're impacting that third leg as well towards the mill. So I believe that the traffic studies really that you presented last meeting was very constricted, and that it's actually a larger
study area.
Yeah, the study area needs to be expounded upon as well. It's a lot more complex than what was presented last time. And I do believe we had talked about queuing as well. I know anybody who uses these roads, myself being one of them, knows that queuing, although sometimes there is great free flow on that artery, there are other times where queuing goes. I think I mentioned Burger King, but I know anecdotally I've seen it further, and many folks who spoke up last meeting confirmed that. So perhaps, I know personally I've been very non-typical traffic scenarios, you can do qualitative evaluations as well, where instead of putting automated traffic recorders, the tubes on the ground, you can get a person out there. Once you determine when those peak hours really are existing with the tubes, you can get someone out there taking physical notes, at this time on this date, the queue is here. Additionally, perhaps folks from the town, if you with your cell phones, right, with a timestamp photo, could present some of that information on this date at this time, the queue is here. And maybe the applicant would then, they'd get some free information. They would get information that they could use and incorporate into the traffic study that they can't refute, just all the data. Because I do understand, they're not here all the time. We are, so something we could think about too, are those folks that are concerned with the traffic could kind of pitch in a way. But I do think at a minimum, without being too long-winded, this traffic area does need to be expounded upon the study area. And I'd second Member Cockshaw's suggestion of a larger sample size for the data. Again, for those folks who were here the last meeting, I didn't have an issue with the engineer following the steps of the study and how the study was carried out. It was carried out through the rules of the process. It just seemed like a garbage scenario. In terms of, you need really solid data on the front end when you put it through all the algorithms and through all the programs, which again, I think I stated all my issues with those, but that's for our federal government to fix that stuff. So yeah, I would say an average count. So you don't just pick one day because you can get anomalies either way. Chris mentioned, hey, you get a day of light traffic. I'll play devil's advocate. Maybe you get a day of insanely heavy traffic. So maybe, let's just get it. The more data points you get, I think the more we can all trust that data and that process, and it will not be, picked apart as much with a very solid base. So.
And we should make sure they have the Easthampton hot tub data too, Jeff, that we haven't given them to that, because that's something we've approved that we have not seen yet.
Well, they can pull trip generation info from that.
Yeah, we
so they can use the ICE manual and estimate some gravity model from that. Their engineers should be able to do that.
Good. Ken, any comments or questions on this? Harry, any comments or questions?
No.
Okay. Jeff?
One thing maybe the board could request as well is a deadline to submit. So the request was to go to the 17th.
Yeah, I was going to say, because as I said before, Luke, we really don't want to keep bumping this out again and again. So I realized that you already had a bunch of stuff on your plate and we all threw some more things now. So I don't know if that's something that you want to wait until we get to the first meeting in February, or you want to try to do this. I would just say, if you're on the fence, to err on the side of not making 100 people come out again. And if it's going to take the extra, I think it's actually 3 weeks, because I think we have 5 in January, right, the 31st, we don't have a meeting, so it'll be.
Right. I think it goes, it goes to the 7th.
So it'll be February 7th. But I mean, I'm happy to keep you on the 17th, but like I said, that's going to be a substantive meeting, and I don't want to have another request for continuance then.
Yeah, no, January 17th should be sufficient time for us to get everything we need to get done that you guys have requested.
Okay, so the deadline.
So Thursday at noon would be sort of the preferred deadline, because town offices are closed on Friday. So receiving things on Friday, unless we're working diligently, extra, we are not posting that until Monday. So Thursday at noon would be the preferred.
So that would be
target.
the 12th at noon.
Yeah.
Does that still work to get this stuff out? Because the other thing we're doing is every time we get something in, whether it's from you or members of the community or whatever, we're putting it on the website so that the public has access to it with enough time. They don't have to be pulling it up on their phones while they're driving over.
Shortens your timeline 5 days, so seriously consider that.
Yeah, especially trying to get a traffic count and all the traffic we're planned together.
If there's sub-consultants involved too.
Yeah, what was the day in February for the February meeting that we could push it to?
Is the 7th.
It would be Tuesday the 7th.
Tuesday, February 7th. I think that would be a better timeline for us. Actually, I'm rethinking it. So if we could push it to February 7th, that would be great.
That would be Thursday the 2nd. At noon would be the deadline to get stuff into us. Does that seem more doable?
Thursday, February 2nd. Yes.
Okay.
That would be great.
Okay. And so just to explain to everyone in the room here, as you've heard, we've got a request for a continuance. We're not big fans of that, especially when people come out and want to participate, but they have been asked to get a lot of material. We're going to vote on continuing it to February 7th. And that, again, would be the only notice to when the next meeting is. So tell all your friends, anyone who thought it wasn't happening tonight, whatever you want to do, but nobody gets a butters cards after the first application gets filed. So share amongst your crowd. And with that,
A motion to continue the Tasty Town Development Project to February 7th at 6 o'clock.
seconded. All right, voting to continue to February 7th. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Harry. All right, that concludes public hearing on Tasty Top for now. We'll see you back on February 7th. Luke, thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you.
All right, we have one other important item of business here, which is the election of our officers.
Should we give a second for people to clear out, maybe?
We're still in meeting, folks?
Yeah, if you could just keep your voices down while you're leaving, we've got some more business to take care of. All right, so we do have a nomination and a second for me as chair. I am happy to continue to do this. I'm also happy if someone else wants to.
Yeah, you're great.
Okay. All in favor? James and James second. All right, I guess all in favor of me as chair. Harry? I'll abstain on that one. I will nominate James as vice chair to continue, but again, I don't want to step away. All in favor of James as vice chair?
Aye.
And who seconded that?
Sorry, yes, okay.
All right,
Spin it around.
and note that James and I both abstained from our own votes. We're chasing people like that. All right, this was kind of shockingly early, but I will.
Motion to adjourn.
We're just kicking the can down the road. Motion to
Someone
adjourn.
wants some water.
Voting to adjourn. Aye. Harry, thanks again.
Thank you. There's a bottle of water over here.
All right.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Anything on Hurricane Scary?
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.